Hello guys, welcome to the Trading Parrot. Yes, it's true, Bitcoin is sitting underneath the largest pools of liquidity that should be attracting the price. But on the other hand, we also have the market maker placing a selling wall right above the price, potentially deferring the effect of liquidating all those shorts. This could end up really bad because it could ignite a potential short squeeze. We got some options expiring as well on Friday, and there might be some motivation as well to keep the price somewhere around where we are in 100k, just delaying potentially what is unavoidable. Guys, if you like this type of content, make sure that you're subscribed to the channel, hit the notification bell to get notified every time I put out one of these videos. Can we get 1,000 likes in this video in the morning? I really need that to get a slap and wake up. I'm so sleepy even though I already have 2 coffees. Let me know in the comments how you're feeling for this day of trading. Join the new bluffing trading competition, $4.2 million share. That's the largest pool I ever seen for a trading competition. You can join my team by using the link in the description. It reads bluffing trading competition. You can win as well a Tesla Cybertruck. I am monitoring currently the aggregated open interest, and yesterday I mentioned that we are having this breakdown in here, which is coming shortly after the Bitcoin breakdown price that has been just going sideways. So that's why I'm monitoring the open interest, because a decrease, a sharp decline could indicate that Bitcoin could also see a rejection. But so far I'm seeing kind of the opposite. Today, remember, every pattern has a bearish side and a bullish side. In this case, the breakdown from the ascending trend line is a breakdown, but if we manage to break above this trend line, we could be seeing the aggregated open interest doing a revenge rally into 36 billion, or we could see an actual breakout to new highs of open interest. Definitely that is going to be hand in hand with an all-time high on Bitcoin. So let's see how we close on the daily in this area in here. That looks very positive, assuming that we close the day like that. And a reminder that we have a CME gap located at 106k on Binance price. We are just 2k away from that, and it's one of the motivations for the price to do just a healthy pullback in case we need to do so before hitting the liquidations located at 109k. The Bitcoin status remains the same. Nothing has changed in terms of price dramatically since yesterday. On the 4-hour time frame, we've been looking for this potential target of 75 RSI. We got really close yesterday with 70, and we are kind of forming a mini head and shoulder in here that the target probably has already been hit. In the momentum, it looks a little bit like a topping formation. We'll see if we manage to put a bearish divergence somewhere in here with higher prices. In the meantime, let's keep track of where are the targets in case we continue with the uptrend and we get into 75 RSI, or if we hit the 55, the moving targets need to be monitored on a daily basis. Thanks to this move down of the price that is sending the target higher now at 110, more or less in line with the highs that we have around the 10th of June. What we are currently seeing as a resistance is the combination of this high with this high located at 108.5. We have already done a successful retest of 107, so I'm gonna ignore that price for a while. But we have a fair value gap at 106.7. We have the anchor VWAP together with the RSI yellow line in here, still in confluence around 106. That makes 2 elements in confluence, and there is a third one, which is the CME gap that is more or less around that price. I will say any retest around 106 is still very healthy. Now, if we go a little bit beyond that level and we were to go into 104.5, that is kind of mild. It's not longer a super bullish retest because at that point we are back below the yellow breakout area that we just confirmed. So coming back into 106.3, yeah, that is a retest. That is fine. Let's take that CME gap if we want to. If we go in the brown, well, gray area, we can recover from that. That is just a 50% retracement of the full move. That is something that we can still recover from, but I know that the late longs that have been entering in here are gonna be massively in pain because the breakout will be called a fake out from then, despite the the fact that from 102.7 we can still make a huge bounce to the upside. It is when we take the lows in here where things start becoming to sound a little bit ugly. Here we can see those same fair value gaps clearly located a little bit below the mid of the range. On the RSI, of course, if we go to those fair value gaps, we are also faking out, completely erasing and going back into the previous range when it comes to the momentum. Of course, at that point, there will be a lot of disappointment and you're going to start reading in Twitter how much it sucks this particular bull market. On the daily, let's celebrate the achievements. Of course, the 4 hours is always all over the place, but on the daily, we managed to put a daily close above the top of the volume profile, which is something that we have achieved multiple times and then failed to sustain. So this time is just one of those. Hopefully it's gonna be different. What we need to do is to hold 107 to retain that success, not like what we did in here, massive green candle, completely sold off into new lows. The momentum is happy. It managed to confirm the breakout on the daily of 52 and now it's just going sideways at the moment. Why? Because of the tough resistance that we are facing. Although you can see a bullish cross in here, to be completely fully technically respectful of things, this is not yet a bull cross because yesterday, let me zoom this in massively, we actually close on the dashed dot line and that is still not a cross. Today we are crossing, assuming that the price remains here. Of course, price needs to really dump very hard to cancel out the bull cross, but I'm just emphasizing that we cannot take for granted that because Bitcoin can do anything. On the weekly, we have a massive green engulfing candle, which is amazing. We are back into the previous range. That's another massive signal for the weekly, assuming that on Sunday we are around this range. One bullish scenario will be if we close very close to the 109k price. That means that we are really pushing it to go for that all-time high and that the bulls are controlling. Of course, if we do it this week and we already kick 113k with a new all-time high and we stay there, well, that's the most bullish scenario that we can ever hope for. Going back below 104.4 puts things in a completely different perspective. At that point, everybody's disappointed. Many breakout areas turns into fake outs across multiple time frames, and the chats about going into the bull market support band become a lot more realistic again. Interestingly, leverage squeeze has stopped shouting in this area. We could say in the past 1, 2, 3, 4 hour candles that we no longer get the same signal. As I mentioned, this is a sell signal, but it's low quality relative to the signal number 2 and not always ends up being a local top. I keep it there because I really like to overlap it with other signals when it becomes really powerful. And today we are potentially confirming a capitulation signal from hash ribbons. You can see that we got a bear cross applied to the hash rates. We have 2 moving averages there, and my contrarian signal triggered right at the lows of the hash rate. Lows of hash rate tend to align multiple times with the lowest price that you can get within a period between capitulation and a buy signal, which in my opinion is something that I want to be informed, not to trade automatically, because you can be at the top of the market in here still having a 17% up, but I want to see where the signal is triggering and then deciding case by case if I really like it. So the signal triggered a couple of days ago, but the capitulation is just getting started, so watch out if the capitulation remains for a while, because that can bring the price down. I think yesterday as well we have a new moon. If you believe in that thing, that is triggering right there. The last new moon pushed the price down like this, and the full moon didn't do anything, so it's sometimes all over the place. But since many people monitor that, it could be some sort of self-fulfilled prophecy. You tell me in the comments what's your take on that. On CryptoQuant, nothing has changed dramatically. We continue to see the retail orders appearing there. I made a comment yesterday that this could be coming not necessarily from retail, maybe the side pricing looks like retail, but they are using some techniques potentially to deceive these platforms by buying 5,000 Bitcoin just in very small tiny orders using some sort of algo, and then instead of being a bullish signal in the systems, it appears as a bearish signal. We continue to have some decent inflows on the spot ETFs, and the all-time highs are becoming pretty pronounced in the last few days. We are back in grid, we are about to enter extreme grid, and you know the routine is always to look for exits when we are in the extreme grid. Not necessarily to panic sell without any reasoning behind, but our approach at very high grids and extreme grid is always to remain vigilant on where do we need to pull the cable. The last sell signal that we have confirmed on Cerberus was on this candle in here. Price went up and put a new high, and right after that it dumped from that high around 31%. So the sell signal, we could say that it failed because it went up, there was some drawdown, but eventually it managed to fulfill the prophecy in a bull market and then print a warning buy. That is a happy path. In here we got the signal sell at 72, 73k, and then there was a drawdown of 31% as well. So I tend to say that that sell signal, I completely ignore it in a bull market, but that's not necessarily the case. What I do is I pay attention to the warning sell, to the golden sell, to look for exits. By the time I get the sell, I don't look for exits. I am supposed to already have exit by then. And the same goes with the buy. The buy prints at 85, but I actually enter at the 74s. That's because I look for buys between warning buy, and by the time I get the buy, I should be already allocated. If I enter on buy, it's a high risk because it can fail. So what this is saying is that I should be already in a short, and if it fails, I should apply risk management. Let's look at the liquidity. Remember, 109 is very intense in the past 30 days, but if we look a little bit beyond that timing, we can see that liquidity actually peaks at 114k even in the short term. I was looking at Trading Light this morning and I was intending to show you the selling wall that we have at 109, but now you're gonna have to use your imagination because it's again down their servers. Actually, we're gonna look at this on FAR charts, and you can see that we have 30 million at 109 and 44 million at 110. So there is some decent defense in there. If you've been watching my channel in the past year, you know that we've been facing selling walls of over 200 million, and many of them are just psychological levels, but here is where they are placing now. That defense initially was at 107, but they moved all of that into 110. Purple wells are going slightly down, a little bit sideways. The orange ones are going sideways, and the same with the brown ones. Let's magnify it so you can get your own interpretation. Remember the sizes. Purple ones, we want to follow what they do, but you know, not always they get it right. I think they missed this rally in here. They never reacted. It was the orange ones that took advantage of it, which is really rare. They usually get it wrong. And that defense doesn't look as intense when you look at this on Market Monkey Terminal, but actually these are decent levels, not impossible to beat, but if you compare relative to what we have below, there is pretty much nothing. And on the bid versus ask ratio, again, we have that selling wall around the 5% away from the price, loads of selling orders. The order book remains very thin at all deviations, 1, 2, 5, and 10. Not much support anywhere below the price. And the longs remain very absent in here with just 34%. We have quite deep red funding rates overnight and now still in the negative, but about to turn positive again. And with this move down that we are having this morning, we are still around 800k of delta, putting the shorts at higher risk. It's always a game of thinking the short-term liquidity, that delta, how much it weights that it can produce a pullback versus the longer-term liquidity that is right next to us above, that is a lot of more volume in reality. I am still in a short, a small position that I can scale up in the future in case I need to, betting on that potential for downside to go into 106, 105, and if I get lucky into 102. At those levels, I flip long again, rinse and repeat. General markets, we can see that the NASDAQ is defending the all-time highs and continue on its way higher. The RSI weekly is pointing up. That looks really bullish. The S&P as well pre-market is now showing 609 versus 607 on the close yesterday. So that is also looking promising. If we continue in this direction, I find very difficult that the defense that they're putting at 109 is going to hold. Potentially we could hit 109 and 111 and even higher if S&P and NASDAQ drags everything up. Of course, anything that goes wrong before Friday on general markets that puts the weekly candle of the RSI back below the resistance, it can turn into a decent bloodbath, I will say. Possibly Bitcoin testing that 100k once more, but that is just hypothetically speaking. We can see the VIX testing the support and going into the territory of the very low volatility. Gold as well breaking down. Those two things together with the dollar breaking down contrarian to what I was expecting, which was the dollar going into 104, is the perfect environment for Bitcoin to really go for an all-time high. If you want to trade Bitcoin, Ethereum or any altcoins and you want to do it risk-free, grab this position airdrop of $500. Look up for Bybit in the description, click that link and register to claim. You still have 4 days of this campaign. You can trade any of the coins in this list and you get to keep the profits whichever you make, with any leverage and any side, long or short. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one. Bye bye.